Okay, year 11, this is the last question that we're going to have a look at on this exam paper, and is the last lesson of this paper before you have a go at the new paper to apply your skills. Whilst this is the last question that we're going to have a look at, it's also the question from the reading section that's worth the most marks. So it's worth 20 marks. It's worth a quarter of this whole paper. So it is really important that you are confident in terms of what this question is asking you to do so that you can do it effectively. This is what the question is. It always follows this format. It will ask you to focus on a particular part of the source. So in this case, it's from lines 28 until the end. So quite a big part of it, but not the whole thing. And again, it's important that you only deal with line 28 onwards. It then gives you a statement that a student has apparently said. So a student said in this part of the story where Zoe and Jake are caught in the avalanche, I can't believe Zoe is so slow to react to the warning signs because in the end, the situation sounds really dangerous. And then it always asks you, to what extent do you agree? In your response, you could consider Zoe's reactions in this part of the story, evaluate how the writer makes the situation sound dangerous, support your response with references to the text. Now, this question made me realise that if I were ever caught in an avalanche, I wouldn't come asking any of you for sympathy because you were all really, really horrible to Zoe. You all said that you couldn't believe how slow she was. Some of you said she deserved it. It was really, you really went for her. I think you missed the point of the question a little bit. Whilst the statement is saying she's really slow to react, you're being asked to evaluate how the writer has done this, or to what extent the writer has made this seem dangerous and has made her reaction slow. And I think rather than saying, well, she was really slow, she didn't see it coming, she thought it was beautiful, she deserved it, you needed instead to think about, well, why has the writer crafted this to feel slow, and maybe thinking more about the build-up of the tension and almost capturing the beauty of the horrific situation and how it took her by surprise, rather than just saying, well, she was slow. So a lot of you responded to the statement, but you didn't necessarily do what the task asks you to do. And that'll make a little bit more sense when we start to look at some of the examples and look at the examiner's report as well. So, as the examiner's report said, the answers need to address the focus of the question, in this case, the speed of Zoe's reaction. So lots of you did that. A lot of you talked about how Zoe was slow to react, or how she didn't see it. Some of you sympathised with her. Some of you were kind. Some of you sympathised with her and said that she didn't see it coming, and it crept up on her, and that was the point. Remember, that statement also said that it was dangerous, so you could also comment on the danger of the situation. Some answers focused on your opinion. This is the point I was getting at before. Some answers focused on your opinion on whether Zoe's reactions were slow, rather than how the writer had conveyed that sense of tension and tragedy by showing how Zoe was surprised by the avalanche. This meant that some responses were unsympathetic rather than evaluative. Something that a lot of you missed, you are expected to evaluate the writer's methods. This is a what, how, why question. You need to talk about methods. They could be language, they could be structure. You've got more choice here, unlike questions 2 and 3. And what I would remind you is that if any of your points from question 2 or 3 are relevant to the focus of the statement, you're welcome to recycle them. You can be efficient in that sense and make the same point and reuse it. Okay. Now you can see from my screen that I've got a video clip here for you, and if you scroll down and look in the Firefly task, you'll find the YouTube link to this video. So I'm not going to play it through the screencast. It would be better if you pause the video in a second and go and watch the video for yourself and then come back. But I felt that you needed to understand what this looked like and what this would perhaps feel like. I joked before saying that some of you were really unsympathetic, but I think that's because you weren't really sure what Zoe was experiencing, and how this moves and how it starts and what the signs are of an avalanche. So this is just a factual little video clip. It shows an avalanche from a couple of different points of view, one head on, as you can see, and then another one from the side. And I just want you to watch it and just be aware of the signs that the avalanche is starting. So what are the signs that warn us that this avalanche is coming, that it's started? So pause this video, Go and watch the little YouTube clip that I've embedded in the task page for you, and then come back. Okay, now you've watched that, hopefully you can maybe empathise with Zoe a little bit more, and why she reacted in the way that she did, and how subtle some of those early signs are. You know, she refers to the plume of smoke, and that is kind of what it looks like when that movement starts. But again, this question, I said to you, a lot of you missed out the focus on the writer's methods. So like we did for question 2, I've made you a little grid. And what I'd like you to do is to look back at the text. Remember, the text is embedded in the Firefly page if you need to refer to it. And just looking from lines 28 onwards, because that's the focus of this task, see if you can identify examples of these writers' methods. So can you find a connective? Can you find alliteration, imagery, a simple sentence, imperative, dynamic verbs, simile, a list of verbs, and a semantic field of sound? So pause the video while you complete that task, and then when you come back, you can have a look at the examples to see whether or not you found the same ones. Okay, here are some of the ones that we've found in line 28 onwards. You might have found some slightly different ones, but again, thinking about how you did this for question 2, now that you understand how Zoe was feeling, how she was reacting to the avalanche, now you've got the writer's methods to go with it, and that's going to help you build your answers. So the connective was but. You've got the alliteration of small slab of snow slip. The imagery, like grey smoke unfurling in silky banners, like the heraldry of armies, quite a beautiful image that the writer uses, not a threatening one. The simple sentence, it was beautiful, it made her smile. The imperatives that come from Jake when he realises the danger, get to the side, get into the trees. The dynamic verbs, pushed, scrambling, batting, the way he bats at her with his stick to try and get her to go to the side, punched. Similes to capture the strength of the avalanche, so like a tsunami, like being agitated inside a washing machine. The verbs that show Zoe's movement, the twisting, the spinning, the turning, and then that semantic field of sound, the rumbling, the roaring, the chattering, muffled and silence. As we did for questions 2 and question 3, we're going to have a look at some example responses from the exam board. Now, whilst question 2 and 3 were just out of 8, the marks, the level 1 mark, for example, was only 1 to 2 marks. Because question 4 is out of 20, you can see that this level 1 response that's on the screen now is worth up to 5. So the scale of the marks is much bigger. You are doing a what, how, why answer, but it is also important that you link what you're going to say to the statement. So in this case, remember the statement is about Zoe's reactions being slow and maybe her not recognising the danger of the situation. So this candidate has said, I don't think Zoe understands the danger because she ignores the rumble and doesn't realise until later on that it's an avalanche. It's quite a simple comment. The writer makes the situation sound dangerous by saying the snow is like a tsunami at sea and Zoe is twisting, spinning and turning. Now, those are really nice examples that this candidate has picked out. It's just a shame they haven't identified what the writer's methods are there. You know, the simile and then the verbs. So the simile like a tsunami at sea, and then those verbs to show her the movement and how disorientating that will have been, the twisting, the spinning, the turning. They've understood that because they've said it makes it seem like she's all over the place at the end, but they haven't identified them. So that's why that's a simple, limited comment and would get 1 to 5 marks. Okay, let's see what this one is. This one is slightly better. This one would get between 6 and 10. So I can't believe that Zoe is so slow to react. She feels a small slab of snow slip from under her and hears a rumble, but she doesn't realise she's in danger. Even when she sees grey smoke unfurling in silky banners, she thinks it's beautiful. This is typical of the unsympathetic approach that a lot of you took. It's only when she sees Jake skiing towards her that she realises something is wrong. From then on, the situation does sound dangerous. The writer uses words like twisting, spinning and turning. It's a shame they didn't say verbs there, to make the story speed up, and it also seems like everything is happening at once. He also says the snow is like a tsunami at sea. Again, shame they didn't mention that that's a simile, so it's very powerful and serious. There's more of an attempt to evaluate the way that it says, so it's very powerful and serious. The way that those verbs make it seem like everything's speeding up, so everything's happening at once. There's more of an attempt to evaluate the method, not just say, oh, well, this means that she's all over the place, or this means that there was a lot of snow and it crashed over her. Right, better still. So this one would get between 11 and 15. So remember, for level 3, we're always looking for clarity. So this is a clear evaluation, clear understanding, a range of references. That range is important if you're wanting a good mark. If you just pick out one quotation, even if you do a stunning analysis of it, it will limit your mark. And then making a clear response to the statement. So this candidate has said, a little bit more empathetic here, I think it's understandable that Zoe is so slow to react. The signs of the avalanche are almost insignificant at the start. She feels a small slab of snow slip from underneath her and hears a rumble. And when she sees grey smoke unfurling in silky banners, she describes it as beautiful because at this stage she still sees the mountains as magical. That's lovely in terms of the way they've evaluated it. So it's not because she's stupid and deserves it. It's because she is still entranced by this mountain. She does see the what she refers to as grey smoke, but it's unfurling like silky banners, which, you know, that it's a beautiful image there. It's not it's not a scary one. It's only when Jake speeds towards her, screaming for her to take cover, that she recognises the avalanche is coming. From then on, the writer makes the situation sound really dangerous. The approaching avalanche is compared to a tsunami at sea to suggest that the snow has enough force to overpower Zoe and wash her away. Also, the triplet, twisting, spinning and turning, not only increases the panic and pace of the story, but conveys how quickly she has lost control of her movements in the hostile conditions. This answer is quite nice because it talks about language, still in quite a simple way, but it does talk about language, but there's also a sense of structure and a sense that Zoe's reactions are the way they are because the pace changes. It starts off very slow and subtle, and as this candidate said, insignificant, and then they become alarming. But at that point, it's too late. And I suppose that's deliberate because that's heightening that tension and that sense of helplessness for the reader. And then finally, the level 4 one. So here we're looking for perception and really detailed evaluation. So even though line 28 starts with the word but, which alerts the reader to a change of some kind, Zoe is still lost in her previous trance-like state, revelling in the exquisite beauty of the surrounding stillness. This is why I believe her slow reaction is understandable, and she barely registers the small slab of snow slip from underneath her and the rumble. Even when she sees the grey smoke unfurling in silky banners, she unknowingly and naively describes it as beautiful. It's interesting, these answers all contain the same quotation, so you can see how the same idea can be written for different and deserve different marks because of how well it's written and how perceptive the understanding is. It takes Jake, who acts as a structural catalyst, so the idea that he breaks the situation down, he moves, he changes it, to move the plot forward and make her realise the impending threat and how vulnerable they both are. So that's a lovely structural point. The writer makes the situation sound extremely dangerous through his choice of imagery. The simile, so we've got precise terminology now, like a tsunami at sea, implying the snow is savagely hurtling towards Zoe, about to submerge and obliterate any life forms in its wake. The triplet, twisting, spinning, turning, reinforces the tone of violence. The present participles, so that's relating to them being ing verbs. That's what you call that part of it, the present participle. Adding immediacy so that we too experience Zoe's loss of control when faced with this overwhelmingly destructive avalanche. So that's really nice, that sense that we empathise with her and recognise her feelings at that point. So you can see why that one, because it's so perceptive, and really balances the use of language and the use of structure, why that one would get between 16 and 20 marks. Okay, this task is designed to give you another go at this question, for you to have a little think about how you answered it. So what you've got down the left-hand side are some images, just to help you visualise what exactly is going on. Then you've got a quotation. Some of these you can see from the black line at the bottom of the screen are from before line 28. That's fine. For the purposes of this, you're going to look at the whole text. And what I want you to think about is what, in terms of link it to the statement, how does it show Zoe's reaction time? So you can look at how she's lost in the moment at the start of the text. How, refer precisely to the writer's methods. And then why, evaluate the writer's intention. How is the reader positioned to respond to this moment of the text? Link it back to that statement again. and the same from line 28 onwards.